The story of Theranos and its founder, Elizabeth Holmes, began with an intoxicating vision that promised to revolutionize healthcare for everyone. Holmes, a charismatic Stanford dropout, captured the imagination of Silicon Valley with a simple yet powerful idea: a small, sleek device that could run hundreds of diagnostic tests from just a single drop of blood. This was not just an incremental improvement, it was honestly a paradigm shift. She promised to make health information accessible, affordable, and immediate, empowering individuals to take control of their own well-being. Investors, politicians, and the public were captivated by her narrative, seeing her as the next Steve Jobs, a visionary poised to change the world with her invention, the so-called Edison machine. The company soared to incredible heights on the power of this story alone. Theranos attracted a staggering $945 million in funding from some of the most respected names in business and politics, achieving a peak valuation of $9 billion. Holmes, with her signature black turtleneck and unwavering confidence, became a media darling and, at least on paper, the world's youngest self-made female billionaire. She graced magazine covers and delivered compelling TED Talks, reinforcing the belief that her technology was on the verge of disrupting a multi-billion-dollar industry. The problem, hidden behind a carefully constructed wall of secrecy and intimidation, was that the technology simply did not work as advertised. The spectacular rise was followed by an equally dramatic and public collapse. In 2015, my investigative reporting at the Wall Street Journal began to peel back the layers of deception. We revealed that Theranos was not using its proprietary technology for the vast majority of its tests, relying instead on conventional machines from other companies. The few tests run on the Edison device produced highly unreliable results, endangering patient health. This exposé triggered a cascade of regulatory investigations, lawsuits, and federal charges. The dream that had once seemed so bright and full of hope dissolved into a nightmare of fraud, lies, and corporate malfeasance. Today, Elizabeth Holmes is not orchestrating a comeback from a corner office, but is serving a more than 11-year prison sentence in Texas for defrauding her investors. Her net worth is deeply negative, a stark reminder of the financial and ethical wreckage she left behind. The company she built is gone, its name now synonymous with one of the most significant corporate scandals in modern history. The fall of Theranos was not just the failure of a startup, it was a harsh lesson about the dangerous intersection of ambition, hype, and the deliberate abandonment of scientific integrity, a lesson the world is now being forced to revisit. Even as Elizabeth Holmes serves her time, the ghost of Theranos has resurfaced in a new and unsettling form. A new biotech startup, Hemanthus, has emerged, and its connection to the past is impossible to ignore. The company was founded by Billy Evans, Holmes's partner and the father of her two children. While Holmes has no official role in the venture, and is legally barred from such involvement, the very existence of a blood testing company founded by her closest associate has sent ripples of alarm throughout the biotech and investment communities. The venture feels, to many, like a Theranos 2.0 scenario in the making, raising immediate questions about its intentions and the lessons learned from the past. Hemanthus is publicly attempting to distance itself from the tainted legacy of Theranos. Its mission, like that of many biotech startups, is focused on innovation in diagnostic testing. However, the shadow of Holmes looms large over its every move. The core premise, advancing blood testing technology, is so intrinsically linked to the promises Holmes made that skepticism is the default reaction. Industry experts and watchdog groups are scrutinizing the new company with extreme prejudice, wary of any narrative that echoes the high-stakes, low-substance playbook that made Theranos infamous. The central fear is that the allure of a comeback story could once again overshadow the need for rigorous scientific validation and transparency. The reaction from those who lived through the first scandal has been one of shock and disbelief. Jeffrey Baird, a pathology expert at the University of Washington, expressed a common sentiment with his cynical wish to short the company's stock before it even exists. This kind of response underscores the deep-seated anger and mistrust that the Theranos fraud embedded within the scientific community. For these experts, the launch of Hemanthus is not a sign of resilience, but a troubling indication that the ecosystem that enabled Holmes might not have fundamentally changed. They see it as a test of the industry's memory and its commitment to ethical standards. For investors, the situation presents a complex dilemma. On one hand, the Theranos saga has made the entire field of diagnostics a high-risk area, prompting much stricter due diligence. No one wants to be the next person to fall for a charismatic founder with an unproven concept. On the other hand, the appetite for disruptive innovation in Silicon Valley is, well, pretty much insatiable. The fear of missing out on the next big thing is a powerful motivator. This creates a precarious environment where a venture like Hemanthus, despite its baggage, might still find financial backing if it can craft a compelling enough story, pitting learned caution against the relentless pursuit of high-risk, high-reward opportunities. The emergence of a Theranos-adjacent venture highlights a persistent and powerful force in the world of innovation: the ability of a compelling narrative to reshape reality. The story around Elizabeth Holmes is already undergoing a subtle transformation in some circles. While the facts of her fraud are undisputed, a counter-narrative has begun to form. One that paints her not just as a criminal, but as a tragic visionary who flew too close to the sun. This revisionist take suggests that her ambition was noble, even if her methods were fraudulent. It's a narrative that attempts to salvage the dream from the wreckage, suggesting that the goal of accessible blood testing was so important that it justified the fake-it-till-you-make-it ethos. This rebranding effort is crucial for any venture connected to Holmes, as it seeks to shift the focus from past failures to future possibilities. By framing the Theranos saga as a learning experience rather than a deliberate deception, proponents can argue that the original vision is still worth pursuing. The story becomes one of premature ambition or a flawed execution of a brilliant idea, rather than a house of cards built on lies. This narrative is appealing because it aligns with Silicon Valley's cherished mythology of the resilient founder who pivots from failure to find eventual success. It attempts to turn a cautionary tale into an epic of trial and error, a much more palatable story for prospective investors and supporters. The danger lies in how easily this reframed narrative can be adopted by those who are eager to believe in technological breakthroughs. People are naturally drawn to stories of redemption and second chances. The idea that the core concept of Theranos could be resurrected and done right this time is, honestly, pretty tantalizing. It taps into our collective desire for progress and our willingness to forgive innovators who dare to dream big. This emotional appeal can be potent enough to make people forget the crucial details, the falsified data, the endangered patients, and the calculated deceit that defined the original company. The power of a good story can, and often does, overpower the memory of hard facts. However, experts who watched the first scandal unfold are pushing back hard against this revisionism. They argue that separating the dream from the fraud is a dangerous fallacy. The core problem with Theranos was not that its technology was imperfect, it was that its leadership lied about that imperfection systematically and knowingly. They warn that any attempt to rewrite this history ignores the fundamental ethical breach at its heart. For them, the narrative is not one of a flawed visionary, but of a calculated con artist. This clash of narratives, visionary versus fraud, is now at the center of the debate, and its outcome will determine whether the industry has truly learned its lesson. Ultimately, the lingering shadow of Theranos and the emergence of ventures like Hemanthus serve as a stark and urgent reminder of an enduring lesson. Hype can never be a substitute for proof. In the worlds of science, medicine, and business, tangible, verifiable results are the only currency that should matter. The allure of a charismatic leader and a revolutionary story can create immense momentum and generate billions in investment, but without a foundation of solid, reproducible data, it is nothing more than a fantasy. The Theranos scandal demonstrated in the most painful way possible that when narrative trumps reality, the consequences can be devastating for investors, employees, and most importantly, patients. The responsibility for upholding this standard falls on everyone within the innovation ecosystem. Investors must move beyond surface-level charm and demand rigorous, independent validation of scientific claims before writing checks. The era of due diligence by reputation, trusting a founder because they have a well-connected board, must end. Regulators, for their part, need to remain vigilant and empowered to scrutinize bold claims, especially in a field as critical as healthcare. The media also has a role to play, resisting the urge to amplify hype without critical examination and celebrating proven achievements rather than just ambitious promises. For the public, the key takeaway is the importance of healthy skepticism. In an age saturated with information and marketing, it is essential to question grand promises and look for the evidence that supports them. The dream of democratizing healthcare is a noble one, But true progress is built on incremental, validated advancements, not on shortcuts and deception. Trust in science and technology is a precious commodity, and it is eroded every time a story like Theranos unfolds. Rebuilding that trust requires a collective commitment to transparency, honesty, and an unwavering demand for proof over promises. The story of Elizabeth Holmes is not over. It continues to evolve in her absence, acting as a litmus test for the integrity of Silicon Valley and the broader culture of innovation. The fear of another Theranos is not about stifling ambition or discouraging bold ideas. It is about ensuring that those ideas are pursued responsibly with a deep and abiding respect for the truth. The greatest innovations are born from intellectual honesty and rigorous discipline. We must demand nothing less because when it comes to our health and our trust, the stakes are simply too high to be gambled on a good story.